Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead Squad, what's going on? It's your boy Speakerhead and welcome back to another video. Recently I set out on a mission to rebuild all of my old bases into new mega bases to support me through the rest of my journey through the game. And after finishing my last two mega bases, which I gotta say I really appreciate the support in those videos, like seriously you guys are awesome, I decided the next base I was gonna redo was my mining base since that one really needed to be redone. So now that's all finished, I wanted to give you all a quick showcase of everything. I'll also mention that I'm still trying to figure out how I want to structure these videos since many people want to see how these structures are made, but I'll try my best to explain how I built everything for those who would want to follow a similar layout as this base. I also did stream a majority of the building process for this base. However, the total length of both those streams is pretty long, plus I was stopping to talk to chat frequently, so just keep that in mind. That being said, I've never done any sort of like goal before, but if this video hits like 500 likes, maybe I can make some sort of shortened compilation of the building sections of those streams. Now, the very last thing I want to mention before we go over this mega base is that if you enjoy any of the music you hear during this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my DMCA free music label, Speakerhead Studios. This is a music label I created and run where all the songs on it are completely DMCA free, so go ahead and use any of these tracks for your content creating needs. We currently have over 70 songs available with more added frequently, so if you're interested in checking that out, all the links will be in the description below. But with all that out of the way, let's start talking about this new mega mining base I built. So to start things off, let's quickly go over some of the dimensions of this base. This structure is going to have a base of 11 floors wide and 12 floors long with 2 floors on the side on the 7th floor. There's also going to be an indent in the front that's 2 floors deep to act as a main entrance of the base. As for height, there are 3 floors in this structure with each floor being 3 walls high for a total height of 9 walls high. Finally, for those who are curious about where this base is located, I'll put a map on screen showing the location along with putting the coordinates as well. So with all the boring stuff out of the way, let's actually start doing the fun part, which is going over everything I built in this structure. Alright, so here we are at my base, and this time we're doing things a bit different because we're going to be starting at the very front of the outside of my base. And the reason why is because I built a few things out front, nothing super crazy, but I did want to show it off quick. But in the front of the building here, we have 3 flower beds on each side. I just kind of flip-flopped them, and for those who are curious, I'm on controller, so I'll be explaining everything in terms of controller controls. But essentially, all I did was I just went to flower beds, and I did the snapping tool, and I personally like to line things up. I know you can just kind of auto snap some things. I'll explain some things that I just kind of line up together, and other things I'll just like snap together. But essentially for these flower beds, all I did was line them up so that way they are right next to each other, not clipping, so something like that, and I just build it like that. Whoops, we'll throw him out instead. That's all I did for the flower beds up front. As for everything else I placed a couple of these little Japanese statues up front. I just thought they looked nice. And I also just put some banners on the wall once again because I just thought they looked nice. Also, to make this building a bit more industrial, we decided to put these pillars on both sides. This was actually a suggestion from one of my viewers. I believe their name is It's MJ. But either way, shout out to you for this suggestion. But then actually getting into the base, make sure to wipe your feet off here. And then we also have some towers off to the left and right to get pals working at certain spots. But then in the actual main building, we have our water fountain with the lantern on top. Always got to have that at every base I got. And then we also have some high quality hot springs here to make sure our pals' sanity is all good. Plus some extra just regular ones off to the side just to make sure we got plenty of spots for all of our pals. But then along this main wall here, we have our mining sites, the Mark II versions. We got 3 of them here. And then we also have some advanced chests lined up as well. So for these, all I did was once we actually placed these, I always like to use any sort of lines on the ground to help me line up any of my structures if I'm just freehanding it. So for example, what I did with these is I just took this and I just kind of lined it up and did my best to kind of make sure that was even. So something like that. I know on keyboard and mouse it might be a little bit more difficult, or even on controller it's sometimes difficult, but that's what I normally do to help me kind of make sure things are straight. But then all I did from there is once I actually placed it, I just lined up another one. I had my Anubis build it, and then I built another one on top just like that. And that's how you can double stack these guys, so you can have 2 of these guys on top of each other. It really helps for saving space. But But getting back to things, we have 2 on each side just to make sure we got some close storage for these guys. It honestly is super helpful to have them like right here as well, because that way the pals can literally just stand in place and transport, and it makes it super efficient. But then off to the side here, we have our elevator shafts with some doors to get in on the side, but we have our elevator shafts to get up to the other floors to make it nice and easy. And then off to the side here underneath the stairs, I try to use up these spaces, so we got some extra storage chests here. And then we also have a production line right here just to make sure we got a place to make things if we need them. And then finally we have these power generators on both sides. We have one here and then underneath the other staircase as well. But moving on to the other side here, also throw out that we got these nice little statues at all the staircases. I think they look nice. But then on this side, we have the weapons production line, so that way we can make weapons here and any sort of ammo as well. But then moving up here to the second floor, we have our nice windows to look out and see everything, see all the nice mountain ranges and whatnot. We also have a carpet here as well, just I kind of threw this in last second just to kind of touch it up a little bit, you know. But then onto the second floor here, we have our other mining areas. So we have our trees and lumbering right here. We have some other sorts of quartz. We have some sulfur. We have some coal. And then finally, we have 3 just regular stone ones here. And I do have duplicates of some of these, not because I'm really going to use them, but it's mainly in case we get any other mines in the future. Like, good example, I hope we get some hexalite or chromite mines. I think that'd be super helpful, but that's why I got them there, just in case we get any more of those and I want to replace them. But that's total of 9 different mines here, so it is pretty handy to have all these here. And then of course we also have the 2 high quality hot springs over here, which those I just snapped to the wall because any other way these leaves will be sticking out and it's kind of annoying to have them clipping. And then of course we do have, as you can see, all of these double chests right here for convenience storage. And I actually want to hop back downstairs for just a sec because I completely forgot to show you guys one room down there. And then finally we do have a little mining thing to make mining more efficient right here. I think it blends in pretty well and I don't think you'd really notice it. And then before we move down to the bottom floor again, we do have some crushers down here, some refrigerated ones, so that way we can make some palladium fragments if we need them. And then finally the elevator as well, just this little shaft right here. Oh yeah, I forgot. And then we also have our little medicine thing in case any of our pals get sick. Gotta make sure they're nice and healthy. But what I forgot to show you guys down here is this main center part, which it was pretty obvious this whole time, but I gotta explain what it is, of course. But up in this area is gonna be our main storage area. So we have 6 advanced chests here just for some convenient storage. But then up here, we have our main storage area. So we have a nice little glass window here with a glass door. We also have some nice banners hanging out on some glass pillars because I thought that just looked nice. But then moving in here, we have our guild storage chest, which is super convenient for every base. And then as you can see, we have plenty of storage chests here in these rooms. So how I like to do it is that if I only have a small area to put chests, that's when I usually like to use advanced chests. But in big giant storage rooms, I always like to use the refined chest just because you can stack so many right next to each other and it doesn't take up that much space. Also, for those who are curious, I have this hole here because I don't know why, but sometimes it'll spawn me like way up here and then I just kind of spawned in chests and had to respawn, and I don't know why I did that. We have plenty of space downstairs. It's like 2 floors tall, so I have no idea why that happens, but that is why we have this gap here, so I can get out in case that happens. And then finally, for some extra decorations, we have a repair bench right here, and then we have this new blueprint thing right here because I thought that looked pretty nice in this room. Also, for those who don't know, this is a super helpful item to use now because you can take all your old blueprints that are like of a smaller factor and you can combine them to make an even better blueprint. So that is pretty freaking awesome, so I highly recommend using this. And before we actually leave this room, for those who are curious, we have a total of 30 chests up here. Even with that gap, we have a total of 30 refined chests, so plenty of storage room up here for any sort of supplies. But moving on to the rest of the tour here, we're going to just skip this floor since I showed you pretty much everything that's actually on this floor. Once again, we got a carpet right here just to kind of spice things up. And then up here is where we got all of our pal beds. We do have a total of 50 pal beds. We got 3 giant ones up here on both sides, and then we have a total of 8 of the smaller nice beds right here. And for the small beds here, I did end up doing the method of just kind of lining them up Let's see. So like this, so I just kind of line them up as close as I could, because this actually does give you a lot more space and you can put things a lot closer together like this. That's how I ended up getting 8 beds like this. But then down here, we do have some pal pods. We have 4 of them. And then we have some more large beds here. But we have 9 large beds in this main area and 16 small beds, which adds up to our total 50 beds. Also, I will mention that I was originally planning on doing some bed stacking, and for those who don't know what that is, I'll just throw up like an image or something here so that way you guys get an idea of what that is. But essentially, it's just a way of stacking all your beds so they're all on top of each other to save some space. But I personally just didn't really like the style of that. I really just wanted things to look kind of natural, not just have stuff floating in the air. So that's why I went with this method instead of the bed stacking method. But then moving on here, so obviously standing on our Statue of Power with our 2 PAL costume stations right next to it, because these are always fun to have. But quickly going over to the right side here, we have our coin production station here. And for those who are curious, all of my Anubises can get to this, and if for some reason they can't, I can assign them with one of the workstations and they get here fine. But behind me here, we just have the iron desk. You can't really do anything with this, it's just decorative. But we also have our toolbox that upgrades work speed, so we got that. I always like putting that right next to this desk. I think it all kind of works together well. And then beside that, we just stacked up some barrels. Didn't do anything super crazy with that. All I did pretty much was, once you actually kind of line up your barrel, you can actually just jump up and then it'll kind of lock in place and you can just build it from there. So that's all I really did. And if you really need to, you can always build another object to stand on to kind of line that up. But from here, we have some low quality workbenches with some crates right here, and not really for actual use, just for decorative purposes. Honestly, I just think they look nice. But then finally, we have big old tube. I always like putting the tube somewhere on like an industrial type base. And then finally, we got some boxes stacked up as well. I just think this looks nice, and once again kind of did the same method of jumping up and then just kind of using the snapping method. And then the very last thing to mention in this corner is I do have a crate right here for storing any gold that we make from this production line. I haven't made any yet, but we got it there just in case. But then moving on to the other side here, and don't worry, we will completely go over this building, I haven't forgotten. In this corner we have more of the scientific stuff, so we have this that can see all of our items. And for those who are curious what we actually got at this base at this time, we got a bunch of different materials mined at the moment. We currently are just focusing on ore because that's what we use for all different types of ingots. And then I've also been storing up some just regular ingots just for making some coins down the line. But moving on to the wall here, we have our vending machines right next to the sphere assembly line, and then in the very corner we have that new PAL storage unit for dimensional stuff, and I think that looks pretty freaking awesome. And then finally in this corner we have our upgraded medicine workbench. So a lot of scientific stuff in this corner, and I think it looks pretty nice all together. But then moving on to this main building here, this is where my main bedroom is. So we put some nice plants out here, and for those who are curious how I actually did this, because I did more of it on the inside, I'll quickly show you how. So using this wall as an example, all I really did was I took these big plants, I kind of lined the first one up, kind of tried to center it, and then I just used the snapping tool and tried to line that up in the center of the other walls. Just like that. From here, I just took the horizontal plants. I first kind of put one, I try to kind of put it in between the end of this plant and where this wall ends. So I just kind of try to line it up there and make sure. A little difficult to get, especially since I don't have a second wall or anything, but essentially just line that up, place that, and then you line it up from here. And then I also like to place one in the very center and try to also just kind of make that even. And finally, bring it out. Technically, I would put it here if the wall is continuing, but since the wall ends there, I would do something like that. So I'll quickly finish up this other side, but then I'll show you the very last thing I end up doing. So once you're at this point, all you gotta do is take the small wall ivy, and then you kind of just line it up with the very top of the wall, or where that line would be. And you just try to center that just like that. But that's how I end up doing all these plants on these walls. I'm still working on some ways to make it look a little bit better and more decorative, but that's how I do it for now. But getting back to the actual building, we put a couple of plants outside because I thought they looked nice, especially with all the greenery on the walls. And then we also put some banners just right outside this door, and we used the second style Japanese door, I believe. Let me double check. So it's the Japanese style door A that I use with the little lip, but that's what I ended up using. And then finally we put a little carpet here, and then ladies and gentlemen, let me show you the inside of my lovely room. Ready? Here we are. Voila. Welcome to the room. So, to kind of go over things, starting with the floor. So what I ended up doing was I took some of these unique green carpets. I ended up snapping them to a wall, and I kind of pulled it out as far as I could with it still kind of being right up against the wall. And then from there, I just kind of kept, I didn't actually just like place them. I did try to do the little lining up thing and snap them as close as I could together, so that way we didn't have any gaps. And then I did kind of make sure that it all lined up perfectly with the dimensions of this room. But this is a 3 by, I believe, yeah, 3 by 5 room, so that's what I was able to do with these kind of carpets in here. And then finally, because I couldn't really put any carpets right here, I just put a couple chests right there and there, and then I put a couple plants and tables right there just to kind of fill up that floor a little bit, along with another carpet, because as usual, gotta wipe your feet off, gotta make sure they're nice and clean. But working our way right to left, so we got my bed right here with a couple nightstands with some books and whatnot. I did make sure that these are all checked so nothing can be put in them. I'll check them if I need to put anything in them, but I just like them for decorative purposes. And then we also just have, once again, for decorative purposes, a nice antique china cabinet. I think it looks nice, along with a bookshelf up there. Once again, same stuff. And then as you can see, we also have some nice plants all over the walls as well. Same concept as the plants I talked about before, but we just put a bunch in here to kind of make it all lively in here. But then moving on to more of the center of the room, we have some nice windows right here so you can look out in the wilderness. Kind of hard to see through them, honestly, but you can kind of do it, maybe, sort of, kind of. But then in the center we have a fireplace. This is the most little decorative spot I got in here. So we have the fireplace, which we'll light that up. We put the little bonsai plant on top and centered that. And then we also put the lanterns next to it. Those I just did the snapping thing where it just auto kind of placed them, so they were good. I didn't like line them up myself. But I believe I did end up doing the lining up method where I kind of lined it up myself with these plants just to make sure that they were nice and close to the fireplace. But then finally, we got some banners above that just to once again fill up the wall space a little bit, along with a shelf. I hate how we have very limited things for decorative purposes, especially for wall stuff, but I'm doing what I can. And then finally, we got some nice chairs that you can sit in and watch the fireplace, you know, hang out with your buddies in here. All nice and comfy and whatnot. But then moving on to this other wall here, we have a couple of bookshelves, once again just for decorative purposes. And then finally we have this antique desk here. I just think it's a nice looking desk, but I do want to talk about how it's a missed opportunity, how it's a very nice desk. We have so many chairs that we can actually sit in. Why can we not sit in this chair? Either get rid of the chair or make it so I can sit in it, please and thank you. But other than that, that is my entire room here. I'll kind of just do a bit of a slow pan if I'm able to, but this is the room that I ended up building. I personally really like it. I am personally really proud of it, especially with these carpets, but let me know what you guys think. Oh, and also because I'm just looking at them right now, I did put up these little curtains just because I think they look nice in this room as well. Kind of changes it with all the greens, add a little bit of red in there as well. But that's everything I really wanted to go over in this room. Nothing super crazy. I did make it nice just because I felt like doing a bit of decorating and whatnot. But yeah, I hope you guys like it as well. I am personally very happy with it. Now, even though we're at the 3rd floor here, there actually is one last thing I want to go over, which is what is at the very top here. So over here on both sides, we have some staircases. I also put some barricades here because I figured that I'd eventually end up running off these ledges. So I put them here so that way I wouldn't do that because I am big wrinkle brain, on the very occasion at least. But then going up these stairs here. We go up here. We got a nice light up here to kind of light things up at night. But up here we have a nice little storage kind of spot up here. Way more antennas and stuff than we ever need, but just kind of like the aesthetic of them. But then in the center here we have the global PAL box, which this was once again a suggestion from a viewer. I believe her name was Dino Ranger or Green Dino Ranger, so shout out to them for that suggestion. But since it also fit in here, I put the PAL Labor Research Laboratory, since once again it kind of fit the same aesthetic as this. And then also we have some nice lanterns all around this just to light things up at night. But then finally in here we have our energy supply, so we got a bunch of them back here. I kind of forget off the top of my head. I'll quickly count them out for you. So we got a total of 18 of these accumulators in here. I've had a lot of people kind of tell me that I go way overboard on these, but honestly I don't really care. I figure might as well just have infinite power at every base if I can do it, you know? But then we also have the alpha and beta generators here, which I didn't know you could do 2 of the ones for the sanity. I thought it was just 1 of each, but apparently you can build 2 of these and it'll work. That's what it says in the description at least. And then finally, we just got a couple storage chests, once again, to just kind of fill out the room a little bit. But with this last little building, that's everything I wanted to go over on this base. So from here, I do want to look at it from a bit of a distance just to show you all. Everyone say hello to Dave. As usual, he is precious and perfect and the best pal ever. But let's just quickly use Dave here to take a look at the base from a bit of a distance here so you guys can see what it looks like. I will admit it still has that general boxy shape that I generally have, especially with all the glass, but I do like how it is a bit more unique from the rest of them. I could build all my bases the same, but I like having them all a bit different from one another so that way they kind of stand out. But overall, I really like the look of this one. It really just has that more industrial feel compared to the other ones. And then the very last thing I want to do here is I just want to get a quick look at this base at night, so we'll just quickly switch over to night and I'll see you guys in a sec. Alright, so here we got the base at night, and once again it's kind of annoying with the light situation how they only come on if you're in vicinity, but once again I just haven't downloaded any mods that actually fix that. Plus I don't want to keep having to reinstall them every month or so because updates are just coming out so frequently and usually have to be reinstalled then. But overall I think it looks pretty solid at night, but then again you're probably not going to be looking at your base at night too much. But let's quickly take a look at things now. So let's hop off Dave quick. We'll start at the bottom here, so starting at the front entrance, nice and open for us, but no lights right here. However, we do have a light up there, and then for this floor the other lighting we have is 1 light right there, and then a light right there, and finally right there. So on all of those walls to kind of light up the whole area. And I don't have any sort of lighting underneath the staircases here, but once again that does a pretty good job at bleeding through. Plus if you have a lantern on you, it should be no problem anyways. But moving on to the second floor here, we're gonna have same kind of light situation. So we got 1 right here, 1 over there, 1 in the center, 1 in the very end over there. But then we also have a light right here, and I also completely forgot to mention this earlier in the video, but I do have 3 furnaces, the giant ones right here. And what I did for these is I did the lining up on the wall and I slid it as far as I could so that way it was lined up with this line right here. And then finally I did the sliding snap method to place these other furnaces here. I did end up having to take out these back walls here plus these side ones to actually make it work, but that's what I did to make sure that they were this close to each other. And then I also have 2 stacked advanced chests on both sides just to make sure we got plenty of room for ingots and everything. So once again, sorry I forgot to mention that earlier, but we do have this all on the second floor here. But as for lighting, everything is pretty good down here. Just once again, you actually got to be in range of the lights for them to work, but overall when you're actually in range they work pretty well. But then moving on to the final floor here, no lights right here. However, we do have some lights right there which work perfectly fine for that. But then as for lighting up here, we do have a few more lights than all the other floors. We do have a couple extra ones right there and right there, so that way these little corner areas are all nice and lit up. Also, for those who are curious about pathing to beds, for the most part they're able to get to the beds. As you can see, Orsurk didn't make it, unfortunately. Sometimes they do have some issues. It's usually on this staircase here. I might have to build a wall so they don't just keep falling down, but for the most part they're able to get to beds. As you can see, Bastigor was on the first floor and he's able to get to the bed totally fine. But then for lighting in this room here, we got one light up here, and that lights up this room honestly a little too much, especially with these white walls. It's almost a little blinding, but it does a great job for lighting up the entire room. Plus we got the fireplace just in case. But then finally moving on to the very top here quick, so just quickly go up this staircase here. Once again, got a nice little light right there. But this is all pretty well lit. I honestly like how it looks. It just looks really nice at night. I mean, just a little distance looks pretty good in my opinion. But then finally, with all the lights that we got up top, don't really need lights down here, but it looks pretty good. I like all the lighting, and plus once again you got your lantern just in case. But now that we've kind of gone over all the lighting and stuff at night, the last thing I want to go over is all the pals that I actually have working at this base, so let's quickly go over that. Alright, so here we are at my pal box, and these are going to be all the pals I have working at this base. It's going to be all the pals on this page along with all the pals on this page. But going through them all quick, we have 15 Astegons working at this base for mining purposes. And then all these guys are going to be fully upgraded in a pal condenser, so they're mining level 5 along with having all the same passive skills. And for those who are curious with this passive skill combination, this will give them an extra 175% work speed. And what's nice about these guys is that they're nocturnal already, so you don't even have to add nocturnal to them or anything. But then moving down to these pals here, we have 6 fully upgraded Yormantide Ignises for using those furnaces upstairs. And once again, all of these Yormantide Ignises are going to have the same exact passive skills as Astegon. But then moving on to the other page here, we have all my transportation pals. So we have 6 Wumpos here since they're really good at transporting, along with a bunch of Anubises, and these guys are going to have Legend, Swift, Runner, and Nimble on them to make sure that they're moving as fast as possible. And once again, all of these guys are fully upgraded in a pal condenser, so all of their base skills are upgraded. But then down here we have 2 ore circs for energy production. Honestly, I could probably just get away with 1, but I got 2 just in case. Plus they're pretty good at transporting, and with the way I got my chest set up right next to my mining sites, they can be pretty helpful. And then the very last pal I have working at this base is going to be my Bastgor, and that's obviously for taking care of the food box. I'm currently still working on getting a fully upgraded version of this guy, but I promise you that he is totally fine at it. Like, check this out quick. I mean, 3,000 minutes, I think that's more than enough. That being said, I probably should get Nocturnal on him so that way I can actually make him work through the night. So in my other base build videos, this is where I normally kind of end things, but I do want to show off how these pals actually work at the base for once. So let me quickly throw all these pals down and show you how this actually looks with all of them out. Alrighty, so we got all of our pals out now. As you can see, it's way more laggy, but we got a lot of things going on now. But to just kind of show how this goes, we have 3 Astegons working at each of these, so goes pretty dang quick, and as you can see, it's getting pulled immediately, so I'm not having to worry about backup or anything. And then just quickly running down the line, as you can see, all of them are being taken care of just fine without any issues. There's not sort of any backstock or anything, which is always a worry of mine, so that's nice. And then what'll actually happen is they'll throw them in this bottom one first, and then once this one is totally full, they'll start throwing in the second one just because that's how their pathing works. But just kind of watching this for a sec, as you can see, it's actually filling up pretty dang quick. That's how I got like 5 million so fast. It was only like within a week. But having all these guys working and doing this mining gets me plenty of ore for any sort of ingots I need. Especially when it comes to hexalite stuff, you just need so much ore, so it's so nice to be able to get this super quick. But then moving on to the upper floor here, as you can see, we got all of our guys mining. At the moment, I just got them mining pure quartz and sulfur, but I will eventually have them mining other stuff in the future. But then over here, don't got them doing any sort of refining yet, but we'll quickly do that just so you guys can see how that is. We got 2 assigned to each of these furnaces, and as you can see, they do a pretty good job of getting those ingots. And honestly, it's more of just having to actually be around and doing this frequent enough to actually catch up with the ore that's being mined, because they just get ore so fast, it's crazy. So now we're down at this pal box quick, and I do want to throw a couple work Anubises because I want to show off how that coin assembly line works. So I just put these Anubises out, so not fully upgraded in a pal condenser or anything, but they should do a pretty good job at working. So as you guys can see, we got our Anubises all lined up and ready to go. We got 3 of them here because I forgot that this assembly line you can only assign 3 pals to. But just quickly making some gold fast. As you guys can see, they do a pretty good job at it, and like I said before, they can get to the assembly line no problem. I just assigned them with the monitoring stand. But overall, great way to get some money while you're just kind of waiting for everything else. But that's everything I wanted to show you at this base, at least when it comes to the pals working at it. So without further ado, I'm going to let the other me take over from here. So with that last bit about pals working at my base all wrapped up, that's going to be my showcase on my new mega mining base. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you like how I built this base, and also feel free to leave some of your building suggestions down below. Finally, once again, if you enjoyed any of the music you heard during this video or just want to support the channel in general, you can check out my DMCA free music label and the links down below. But that's all I have to say for now, so thank you all so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch all y'all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody.